Arthur and Liza were a middle-aged couple living in a quiet town in the countryside. Married for 15 years, they had built a life together and formed a family with their 2 children, Jacob, 14, and Emily, 10. At the beginning of their relationship, the love between them was palpable. They shared dreams, laughed together, and faced life's challenges as a true team. Arthur was a tall man with broad shoulders, with grey hair beginning to show at his temples. He worked as a manager at a local factory, dedicating long hours to his craft. Despite the fatigue, he always tried to be a good father and husband. Liza, on the other hand, was a woman of average height, with expressive eyes and a captivating smile. An elementary school teacher, she had a genuine passion for educating children. Their house was cozy, with a beautiful garden in front that Liza cared for lovingly. Inside, family photos adorned the walls, telling the story of that home over the years. The basement, a spacious and somewhat cluttered area, stored memories in dusty boxes, forgotten items, and seasonal decorations. In the early years of marriage, the family's routine was punctuated by small rituals that became cherished traditions. Friday nights were almost a sacred event, reserved exclusively for home movie nights. Right after dinner, Arthur would drag the sofas close to the TV, creating an impromptu cinema atmosphere, while Liza prepared a huge bowl of buttery popcorn, the delicious aroma spreading throughout the house and attracting the children to the living room. Jacob, still small, would snuggle under a blanket on his father's lap, while Emily, with her inseparable doll, nestled between the soft cushions. The movies chosen were almost always science fiction, those with modest budgets and questionable special effects, where cardboard spaceships moved awkwardly and alien creatures looked like they had come from school fantasy fairs. But it was precisely this that made the sessions so special. Amidst the children's laughter and Arthur's witty remarks about the forced dialogues, everyone would end up bursting into laughter. Liza, with her spot-on observations, often mimicked the most exaggerated characters, drawing laughter even from Arthur, who tried to maintain his seriousness. In that small space, illuminated only by the flickering light of the TV, the family forgot any worries of the outside world and connected in a pure and genuine way, enjoying the simplicity of that moment together. Then, on Sunday mornings, the family had another equally significant ritual. Arthur and Liza, both steadfast in their faith, viewed going to church as an essential pillar to maintain their union and impart important values to the children. Sunday started early, with the muffled sound of Liza's footsteps down the hallway as she gently woke the children. Jacob, always the lazier one, was reluctant to get out of bed but eventually gave in to his mother's caring and determined gaze. Emily, on the other hand, dressed excitedly, carefully choosing her colourful bows and dresses. Arthur, already dressed in his best dress shirt and polished shoes, helped fix the last details, adjusting Jacob's tie or checking if Emily hadn't swapped her shoes for slippers. The small local church, with its simple red brick facade and the soft sound of the choir coming from inside, was the final destination. After the service, the ritual continued. The family would head to a small nearby restaurant. They sat together, with Arthur always pulling out a chair for Liza before taking his seat. While waiting for the food, they talked about the week's events. Jacob spoke about school, his victories in football, and his friends. Emily shared little stories about her classroom playtimes. Arthur and Liza exchanged affectionate glances and commented on the small achievements of family life, like a new bud in the garden or a cake recipe that turned out well. These moments, though simple, were the foundation of the family. However, as the years went by, the routine and responsibilities began to weigh on the couple. Arthur started working longer hours, often coming home late at night, too exhausted for any meaningful interaction. Liza, on her part, felt overwhelmed with household chores and the demands of her job as a teacher. Jacob, the eldest son, entered adolescence and began to show significant changes in his behaviour. The boy, who was once a diligent and participative student, started frequently skipping classes, submitting incomplete assignments or not doing them at all. His grades plummeted, and concerned teachers began calling the parents for increasingly frequent meetings. They reported that Jacob was inattentive, responded harshly to his peers, and on some occasions got involved in heated discussions in the classroom. The behaviour of the son became a major point of conflict between Arthur and Liza. Arthur, exhausted from his long working hours, saw Jacob's problems as a result of Liza's permissiveness. He believed she had spoiled him too much, leaving the son without clear boundaries and allowing him to escape the consequences of his actions. "You always coddle him," accused Arthur, in a tone of frustration during heated discussions at night. Liza, on the other hand, saw the situation differently. She argued that Jacob needed more attention and affection, something that Arthur, in her opinion, had failed to show over the years. "He feels your absence, Arthur. You're always too busy to notice that he just wants to be heard," she retorted, trying to hold back tears. For Liza, Jacob's rebelliousness was a silent cry for recognition and support, but Arthur saw everything as disobedience and lack of discipline. The conflicts were not just verbal. When Arthur tried to be stricter and impose rules, Jacob shut down even more, becoming even more distant and defiant. Liza, in turn, felt pressured between her husband's demands and her growing concern for her son's well-being. The atmosphere at home became even heavier, with doors slamming and prolonged silences replacing the lively conversations of former times. The movie nights were forgotten. One week Arthur had to work late, the next Liza had a headache. The trips to church became less frequent, with Jacob refusing to go and the parents too tired to insist. The late-night conversations before sleeping, which used to be an intimate and precious moment for the couple, became rare. The atmosphere at home became tense. The arguments between Arthur and Liza became more frequent, usually about trivial matters that masked deeper issues. The children sensed the tension, and it affected the family environment as a whole. Emily, the youngest daughter, tried to maintain the family's cheerful spirit. She still asked to watch movies together or to go for walks in the park on Sundays. But her attempts were often met with excuses from the parents, too busy or tired to participate. The house, once so full of life and laughter, seemed to have lost its soul. The walls that once echoed lively conversations and laughter now seemed to absorb the silence and sadness that hung in the air. Liza's garden, once vibrant and well-tended, began to show signs of neglect, reflecting the emotional state of its caretaker. On that December Saturday, the tension reached a new level. Liza, determined to bring a bit of the Christmas spirit into the house, insisted on decorating it for Christmas. Arthur, tired and unwilling, resisted the idea. "I'm not in the mood, Liza," he said, while absent-mindedly flipping through the newspaper on the kitchen table. Liza felt the tears forming in her eyes. "You don't care about anything that used to be important to our family anymore," she accused, her voice trembling slightly. Arthur sighed deeply. "You're being too sensitive," he replied, but upon seeing the hurt in his wife's eyes, he felt a pang of guilt. Finally, he relented. "All right, I'll go get the decorations from the basement." As he descended the creaky stairs leading to the basement, Arthur found himself surrounded by piles of dusty boxes. The dim light from the single bulb hanging from the ceiling cast strange shadows across the corners. He began rummaging through the boxes, muttering to himself about the disorganization. "Liza needs to sort out this mess," he murmured, opening another box. "She never labels anything. I have to open each one to find what I'm looking for." It was then that he opened a particularly dusty box. Upon exploring its contents, he realized it was one of the boxes Liza's mother had sent, filled with memories from his wife's childhood and youth. Among old dolls and swimming trophies, Arthur found a small velvet box. Curious, he opened the box carefully. Inside, he found a collection of mementos, tickets, photos, and letters. They were keepsakes from an old boyfriend of Liza's. Arthur knew they were things of the past, stored and forgotten for years, but his curiosity got the better of him. He began to examine the photos. In one of them, Liza and her ex-boyfriend were in a seafood restaurant, wearing ridiculous lobster-shaped hats. Liza's smile was radiant, full of life and joy. Arthur couldn't help but smile as well, remembering how much Liza loved seafood and realizing it had been years since he last took her to such a restaurant. Among the letters, one phrase caught Arthur's eye. "Your smile lights up my day." The words, though written by another man so long ago, triggered a flood of memories for Arthur. He remembered Liza's smile on their wedding day, radiant as she walked down the aisle. He recalled her smile when they first entered the house they bought together, and the emotional smile when their son Jacob was placed in her arms for the first time at the hospital. That smile, which once brightened his days, now seemed like a distant memory. Arthur couldn't remember the last time he saw Liza smile like that. At the bottom of the box he found an envelope containing a train ticket to a distant destination, dated 20 years ago, long before Arthur met Liza. Alongside it was a note. "Liza, your love makes me better every day, and your dreamy gaze gave me the motivation I needed to pursue my dreams. Board the train with me. I'll be waiting for you at the train station." Arthur knew that Liza never boarded that train. She chose a different path, one that led her to him. Suddenly, Arthur found himself reflecting on his own relationship with Liza. When he met her, he was someone without big ambitions, content with a life with few pretensions. But it was Liza's love, her dreamy spirit, and her faith in him that motivated him to be better. He remembered how he wanted to build a future with her, how he strived to be a better person, not just for himself, but for her. Liza was always a dreamer and sensitive, traits that Arthur deeply loved in her. He recalled how he loved smelling her perfume in the morning, how his heart warmed with that smile, how he got lost in that look full of love and possibilities. Arthur realized that, at some point over the years, he had forgotten to appreciate these little things. The routine, worries, and responsibilities had overshadowed what really mattered. He realized that, just like Liza's former boyfriend, he had also made a similar proposal to her years ago. He proposed that they embark together on a new life in a new city, and she accepted. Liza had chosen him, had bet everything on him and their love. His thoughts were interrupted by Liza's voice coming from the top of the stairs. "Arthur, is everything all right down there? Did you find the Christmas decorations?" The sweetness in her voice, even after all the recent arguments, touched Arthur's heart. "Everything's fine, my love," he replied, feeling a wave of affection as he called her "my love," something he hadn't done in a long time. "I haven't found the decorations yet, but I found other things I had forgotten I had." Finally locating the box with the Christmas decorations, Arthur climbed the stairs with renewed determination. Upon reaching the living room, where Liza awaited him with a mixed expression of curiosity and concern, he said, "Hi, my love. How about we leave the kids with a babysitter tonight and have dinner at that seafood restaurant you loved?" Liza's face lit up with that smile that Arthur loved so much, the one he had just rediscovered in old photos. She hugged him, accepting the invitation with enthusiasm. "There's also a terrible movie for us to watch tomorrow on our family movie night," Arthur continued. "One of those really bad ones where the makeup is obvious. I'm sure the kids will love it." Liza looked at him, surprised and emotional. "You want to restart our movie night?" "Yes," Arthur replied, holding her hands. "I think we got a little lost along the way, Liza. We forgot about the things that made us happy, that kept our family together. I want to bring that back." That night, while having dinner at a small seaside restaurant, Arthur and Liza talked like they hadn't in years. They laughed about memories from their early dates, talked about the challenges they faced with their children, and for the first time in a long time, made plans for the future. The following Sunday, to Jacob and Emily's surprise, the whole family went to church. After the service, they had lunch together at a nearby restaurant, just as they used to do years ago. Jacob, initially reluctant, ended up getting involved in the conversation, sharing stories about school that he hadn't told his parents in a long time. The following Friday, they all gathered in the living room for a movie night. Arthur had chosen a particularly bad science fiction film, and soon the room was filled with laughter and comments about the poor special effects and over-the-top acting. As he watched his family laughing and interacting, Arthur felt his heart full. He knew not all problems were solved. There was still much work to be done, difficult conversations to be had, especially with Jacob. But there, in that moment, seeing Liza's smile, hearing the laughter of his daughter Emily, and even noticing a small smile on the usually grumpy face of Jacob, Arthur knew they were on the right path. He understood that love, like a delicate plant, requires constant care. It wasn't enough just to plant the seed. It was necessary to water it daily, protect it from the elements, and sometimes prune some branches so that it could grow stronger. Arthur made a silent promise to himself and his family that night. He promised he wouldn't let the routine and daily worries overshadow what truly mattered. He promised to strive to be the husband Liza deserved and the father his children needed. As the movie credits rolled on the screen, Arthur pulled Liza close and whispered in her ear, "Your smile still lights up my days." The look Liza gave him in response was all he needed to know, that as long as there was love, there would be hope. And in that family, love, although temporarily forgotten, had never ceased to exist. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.